Welcome to the table, everyone. Today, I'll be giving you a crash course in how I make multiple maps and stitch them together using Inkarnate. At the end, we'll upload them to Roll20 as well. If you're already familiar with how to do all this, hopefully you'll pull something useful out of it. We'll be focusing on making a small village that spans 3 outdoors maps. Editing Edward here. I lied. I said 3 maps. I make 4. Whoops. Some things we may want to consider to make them more believable. I'll put them on screen. The wealth of a village, the work of an average citizen, its natural region, the physical size of the village, its proximity to a larger city, and its population. This village, we'll name it Orlon's Cross, named such for the bridge reaching across a deep river valley that we're working on in this first map. We'll say it's a village of modest wealth, where the citizenry mostly fish, hunt, and trade on the nearby coast to get by. A smaller village with a population of about 150, and we'll say it's a 3-day walk from the large city that they typically interact with. With all that in mind, to keep things easy, we'll say that the average family size is about 5, with one family inhabiting one home, puts us at 30 homes in total, 10 per map. I should probably talk a little bit about this map since I kind of just threw it on without even realizing. Some things you might want to do for your water areas to put items underneath the water, so to speak, is you do what I'm doing here and you place down all of your water items first. Sea snakes, lily pads, small rocks, vegetation that's fallen in, anything you can think of that might be in the water that you want under the water, put them down first and then flatten them to the background. It's very important that you flatten them to the background, and then you can make a pass with your water brush with it at a lower opacity so that your players, or even just yourself, can actually see the items that you've put down. You can see I lower the opacity just a little bit, go over it, zoom in and make sure that I can actually see them. And then I realize that these tokens have outstanding rocks that I want to let stand, so to speak, because I think they look a little strange just floating in the water. Here, we'll be making a bridge that I mentioned earlier, that Orlon's Cross bridge. It's important that you line them up somewhat. You can go pixel by pixel if you're a little bit insane about that sort of thing, like I am. Otherwise, just eyeball it. Your players are only going to see it for a little while, and if you do wind up having it be the centerpiece, they'll probably be focused on whatever cool thing you've written, as opposed to the fact that the pixels of the bridge aren't aligned. You never know. I'm not quite sure how to add stakes, like hammer and nail stakes. So I just put boulders on the bridge. I think that that works. Here we'll be putting the main road that I was talking about, making it so that the city, or village I should say, is immediately off of the road. You can have guards coming through here, merchants coming in, kids playing around, other things like that. I'm going to fluff up the map a little bit. I like to put in trees, animals, small rocks, other things like that. And of course, make sure that you have all of your stuff on the right layer, otherwise, it won't look good. Now that we've added a good bit of fluff to the map, we're going to go ahead and add just something for catching the eyes of your players. It could be used as sleeping quarters for some of the guards on patrol up here. It could be used as a merchant safe space. It could be used for more intimate activities. It could be where someone homeless sleeps, a la that guy from Stardew Valley. Or it could be just a tent. The point is that it's going to draw the attention of the players and get them to engage with your maps, if nothing else is going on here. Otherwise, congratulations. You're done. We're going to go ahead and call this the front of Orlon's Cross and move on to the next one. Now, I forgot a very important step in this process. You're going to want to save your map as a clone. I hovered over it for a second. I don't know why I didn't press it. But the basics are the same. Once you're editing the saved clone, you grab everything in your map that can be moved and you push it off to one side, just barely on screen enough that you can see where you want to start from again. and then you just start again. Let's tune in for a live Edward reaction to my mess up. To remember how it looked, a little fat. Too fat. There we go. Okay. And I... Yeah, me too, buddy. Anyway, trying again, making sure we're editing the cloned map, put everything just a little off screen, start anew. One thing we might want to consider while we're making the actual population maps here is how popular Orlon's Cross is. Another thing would be how safe it is. We're going to make Orlon's Cross a very safe place to be. And we can reflect that by having the houses here along the sort of main road not really have any defenses for bandits or goblins or any other low-level fantasy threat you might want to show. We're going to make sure that we space the houses out accordingly and evenly in a believable manner. And we're also going to size them down from 100 to make sure that when we import it to Roll20, they don't balloon and become way too large to look at. Spacing the homes is always the most annoying part, at least in my opinion, of these maps. Mostly because it's hard to fit enough houses on the map to make it believable for the population that you've decided on. But what we're going to do here is add the tavern. And that does two things. Number one, it breaks our rule of about 10 homes per map immediately. And we can explain that away by having some families renting out permanent rooms in the tavern. The second thing we do by this is adding or making it a fancy roof. That way it stands out from the rest of the homes, and it's easily identifiable for players that it's important in some way. Be it a tavern, a noble's home, a big warehouse, a building that's going to be related to the plot, something you want them to explore, anything like that. We also put some crates and some barrels around the outside of the tavern. People gotta store stuff. We also give the same treatment to the houses around. And then we litter some rocks and some plants and some wild animals around the map as well, just to give it some life. We also add a point of interest, just like the tent on the previous map. In this case, it's going to be a big ol' apple tree right in the center of the sort of cul-de-sac that they've got going on. One thing to be mindful of when placing tokens here, on any of your maps really, is that you need to be aware that the players might just simply interact with something that you didn't really plan to. I remember once when I had my players investigating a noble's mansion that I put a cat in one of the rooms because I assumed that the nobleman would have a pet animal of some kind. And one of my players tried for about 5 minutes to steal the damn thing. I didn't plan for it. I didn't plan for the character to have an animal companion, but it made for a nice bit of roleplay right then and there in the moment. Conversely, however, these tokens can also be used to set up scripted events that you want to have happen. Another example, I had two lobsters playing with an orb that was central to the plot, and I was banking on the fact that it might be too irresistible for the players to pass up. And I was successful, and I was ready for that encounter. The final flourish that I'm going to add onto this map is going to be some livery around the outside of the tavern. Perhaps they're setting up a festival, perhaps there's a competition of some kind. Adding more rocks and plants to the road and to the sides of houses. The main point, or the main thing you want to be mindful of here in these final touches, is to not go overboard. Now that we're done, we save it as a clone. We name the clone 2, Orlon's Cross 2, and then we push everything off to the side again. I always like to start with the roads to sort of paint where I'm going to be putting my houses. Maybe that's why it's so difficult to space them out, because I sort of box myself in. Something to be mindful of. But again, tune them down just a little bit so they don't bloat, and get to placing. In larger cities, or even larger villages, what I like to do is use the larger house tokens, but have them be pushed off the map a little bit to give more of an alley sense. And then I make those complementary maps where it's just 2 houses, or 2 rows of houses making an alley. Here, with the fancy roof, we're going to be putting in the general store. I'm going to want to make the general store look a little busy, so a little later on I'll be adding carriages and some horses off to the side that we can put on tokens in front of in Roll20. For the second fancy roof, as part of the plot that I'm writing, I want them to be investigating this warehouse. It's an old abandoned warehouse that no one has access to. And so I want to try and give the air of importance to that token. And a third fancy roof. This one is going to be a nobleman's house that I also want part of the plot. We're going to sort of signify their wealth by having them basically have their own small road. Wise words of wisdom from Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story. Save often, save your sanity. I cannot tell you the amount of times that I've had maps lost because I forgot to save. And then the power went out or the site crashed. And here, with our houses placed, we start adding the not quite finishing touches, but livening touches. A couple rocks, a bit more here than at the front, since most travelers wouldn't really come down here, or at least not this far into the village. We're also going to give this noble his own apple tree. And we're also going to give him a large statue of the nobleman himself, of course. It's also possible that this could be a statue of a god that the nobleman worships, or of a town hero, or it could be not the nobleman's statue, it could be the town's statue. Here, I'll be placing those wagons I talked about a little earlier. These covered wagons are better to use, in my opinion, because then you don't have to put the box tokens on them in Roll20. If you'd want to go one step further, you could also make a map for the stables where they keep the horses. I don't. I have them put somewhere else along the road, along the main road. I'll also put a tent just out front for a merchant to be hawking wares to travelers that might need to come down here to resupply. More crates and barrels for more people to store more stuff in. Here I realize that they're actually just a little bit too small. If you ever wind up having problems with the sizing of your tokens, the most important thing that you can remember is to keep everything somewhat consistent. Me, I have a cheat sheet that I've made in Google Drive for the average sizes of things and how that changes depending on the perspective. Man, even the crows outside are laughing at me. But, congratulations. Now you're done with Orlon's Cross too. A critique I would give myself here would be to add a couple more trees on the outsides of the maps. But that's okay. And finally, we push everything off screen again for the last time to make the tail end of Orlon's Cross. You could say that here at the end, it would be the more wealthy dwellers, or it could be the poorer dwellers that sort of have to live closer to the forest. Regardless, we are going to put the mayor's house back here. Next time, I'll show you how to make the interiors for mayor's home, the general's goods store, and the tavern. Not quite sure why I'm going kind of hog wild with this thing, but sometimes it helps to just play around with the tokens on the map. You never know, maybe you think of something better. Here, instead of a large circular cul-de-sac, I decide to sort of box everyone in and make them walk under rooftops. Here, I'll decide that the poorer residents will live here. You could also make the barracks for the, 10 or 15 guardsmen. You could make them inside the mayor's house. You could say that it's attached right onto the side. Or you could just say that the guards live in their own homes with their own families. I'm also going to go over the grass with an opaque dirt brush to give off the impression that this is one of the more walked areas in Orlan's Cross. Go around the horn with the crates. No barrels this time. But that's one thing that I always attach to every single house, are at least crates or barrels. People gotta store stuff, and sometimes they're not rich enough to keep it in their home. A lot of times, though, I just use them as lootables for the players, if they want to get up to some skullduggery and some thievery. You could also use it as cover for a trapdoor. That's one of their better uses, I think, is to sort of hide a trapdoor behind them. Or they could be used as leverage to get onto the roof to get a better angle at a riot or an execution in the world, or an apostle preaching, any social event like that. Here, I'm actually just going to give the players the idea of getting onto the roof for something. The best part, maybe not the best part, another good use for these is that they could be just used for nothing at all. Maybe the mayor just has a ladder on the side of his house and there's nothing up there. Or all of the crates that you put in your world are just used for regular storage of random items. And finally, for our last point of interest in Orlan's Cross, we're going to add a fountain. You could say that people throw coins in it for wishes. It could be something that people just relax at. It could have religious significance. It could be used for rituals or town events. Anything like that. There are really a lot of ways that you could explain away, not even explain away, but there really are a lot of ways that you could use the tokens that you have to your advantage for fluff. Now that all of our maps are made, I'm going to take you guys through the last steps here, downloading them and uploading them to Roll20. You're going to want to open every single map in a separate tab. And then here you can see some of the games that I've run. You want to create a new game. Taking a second here. We'll call it Orlan's Cross for the purpose of this video, although typically I name it the name of the campaign. And then what I do every single time I join a Roll20 game is I like to get rid of the images. So I come over to the settings, over to audio and video, into video, change the player names or the player avatars to names only, and move it to the top. That's where I like it. I think it puts them nice and out of the way. I know who I'm playing with. I know their character names. I don't need to be reminded of them and have them take up a bit of the screen. Now, you're just going to export every image. I like to do them 2 at a time. Come over to Roll20. You make sure that you add as many pages for maps as you need. I like to name them just like how we named the maps. 1, 2, 3, to represent the different parts of the town or the village. And then it's as simple as dragging and dropping them on, and then waiting a couple seconds. What I do for every single map, regardless of what it is I stretch it to fill. There should be 6 white boxes on the very bottom there, on every single map. Come over here, and I enable Fog of War on the map every single time without fail. And then we're just going to repeat that whole process once more. And that's how I make multi-map villages, in this case, using Inkarnate and uploading them to Roll20. Next time, like I said, I'll take you through how to make some of the interiors for this town, and then I'll walk you guys through how to actually set up a one-shot to take place here. Also, for every single map, right-click on it and make sure you put it on the map layer. That allows you to put tokens on top of things, or on top of the map. Okay, that's it. Bye-bye.